Bobby Wine, people of Uganda, listen to my voice. When I look at your 2026 election, I do not see just another African vote. I see a battlefield between an aging regime, a rising youth movement, and a digital blackout that has already gone spread out. The whole world is asking the same question. Is Bobby Wine about to become Uganda's next president or Museveni's next target? Museveni has ruled for nearly 40 years, seeking now a seventh term under an internet shutdown, police crackdowns, and banned NGOs. Bobby Wine comes from the ghettos and the stage, carrying the hopes of a generation that is tired of old presidents and rigged elections. Your clash is trending in every Africa-breaking news feed, but behind the headlines is a deeper story about youth power, fear of change, and how far a system will go to survive. Uganda, understand this. When a leader as young as me in Burkina Faso sees your struggle, I see a mirror. My question to you and to the world is simple. Will Bobby Wine walk into State House or be pushed toward martyrdom while the cameras are off? Uganda, you stand at a crossroads with only two honest signs: next president or next target. Bobby Wine has already survived arrests, beatings, blocked rallies, and smear campaigns, yet he is still on the ballot facing Museveni in this 2026 election. That alone shows how dangerous his popularity is to the system, and how determined the system is to contain him. When a pop star turned opposition leader fills streets, dominates hashtags and trends in global Africa news, rulers have two choices. Either they accept the risk of losing power through real elections, or they quietly prepare to neutralize him through lawfare, violence, or character assassination. Museveni's internet blackout and police crackdown signal which way his instincts lean. Bobby, your face is now on posters, protest banners from Kampala to London, but so was mine when I faced coup attempts and assassination plots in Burkina Faso. Understand this: the more a regime feels threatened by the love of the people for you, the more it thinks about how to turn that love into fear. That is how a potential president becomes a potential target in the eyes of those who refuse to leave. Look at Uganda today. Tell me, what is the value of a vote when the leading challenger, Bobby Wine, has to cast his ballot while wearing a flak jacket and a helmet? In Kampala, the polling stations opened late, systems failed, and the streets are filled with combat boots instead of voters' hope. This is not an election, it is a theater. How can you have a free choice when the state-controlled media is the only voice, and the internet is cut to silence the youth? This is the grand illusion of the NRM regime. They want the world to see democracy, but we see a desperate attempt to legitimize a 40-year reign through a broken system. President Museveni, you and I do not belong to the same generation. You came to power in the 1980s, when television was enough to control the story. Bobby Wine is not just a pop star, he is an algorithm phenomenon. His speeches and songs travel through social media faster than any state TV bulletin you can script. African youth see in him the same desire they see in me, a refusal to accept that leadership must be old, distant, and afraid of questions. This is why your security forces surround his rallies, why your police flood Kampala streets as polls open under internet blackout and crackdown. It is not only about stopping one man, it is about stopping the idea that someone young, from the ghetto, from the people, can replace a long-sitting president without asking permission from the old order. Uganda, let us talk about this internet blackout. When a government cuts access days before a presidential election, that is the clearest referendum on its own confidence. If Museveni truly believed he could beat Bobby Wine in a fair fight, he would want every polling station live-streamed and every ballot box filmed. Now, on this election day, the United Nations and the Western embassies pretend to be deeply worried by the internet blackout. They issue press statements while their corporations continue to sign mining and oil deals for the EACOP pipeline. This is the imperialist shadow. They talk about democracy in the morning and sign contracts with the dictator in the evening. Even as the US announces healthcare funding, they remain silent on the kidnapping of opposition figures. My message to Bobby Wine is a warning. Do not look to Washington or Brussels for your salvation. They will cheer for you on CNN, but they will never sacrifice their strategic interests for your freedom. True independence means being the master of your own house. In Burkina Faso, we broke the chains of the CFA franc and expelled foreign forces because we realized that sovereignty is not a gift, it is a struggle. Uganda must decide today, are you a sovereign nation or a resource colony for the highest bidder? Bobby, there are two versions of you haunting this election. One is President Bobby Wine, taking the oath in a peaceful transition that would shock the world and inspire Africa's youth from Kampala to Ouagadougou. The other is martyr Bobby Wine, a man whose blood or imprisonment becomes a warning to anyone who dares to challenge a 40-year regime. Uganda's power structure is calculating which version serves it better. A living President Bobi forces the old guard to share power, open the books, and face real accountability. A broken or silenced Bobi allows them to say, "See what happens when you rise too high," turning your story into a tool of fear. That is why every threat, every arrest, every blocked rally matters. It is the system testing how far it can go without triggering an explosion. To Uganda's youth, understand this clearly. When you chant his name, you are not only asking, "Can he win?" You are also asking, "Will they let him live free if he gets too close?" That cruel question is what turns a candidate into a possible next president, or Museveni's next target. The year is 2026. We are told this is the era of artificial intelligence and the global village. Yet, in Africa, we see a terrifying reality. A single man in a palace can press a button and erase 45 million people from the digital map. On January 13th, the Uganda Communications Commission issued a secret order. By 6 p.m., the lights of the internet went out. This is digital authoritarianism, and it is the new frontier of the struggle. Why does Uganda go dark during the My Uganda Decides 2026 election? Because the infrastructure of our communication is still controlled by those who fear the people. This is digital colonialism. Bobi, when I speak about you as the next target, it is not theory, it is experience. In Burkina Faso, coup plots and assassination plans were not rumors. They were real operations, backed by those who could not accept a young captain changing the direction of the country. Intelligence reached my desk with details, names, money offered to soldiers. That is how a system reacts when it sees a leader who cannot be bought or intimidated. In Uganda, the same fear lives in the shadows around you. The language of security threats, public order, and foreign influence is often a mask worn before something harsher is done. First, they try to break your image with propaganda. If that fails, they try to break your body with arrests and violence. And if that still fails, some begin to wonder if removing you completely is the only way to save the regime. This is why an internet blackout and a police crackdown around elections are so dangerous. Darkness is where bad decisions are made, and when a man like you is loved by millions, every minute of darkness carries a question. Will they dare to cross the line from repression to elimination? Some say to me, "Traore, you came through a coup. Bobi Wine is trying through elections. You are opposites." But I see a deeper connection. We are both answers to the same crisis. An Africa where leaders stay 30, 40 years and call it stability, while youth unemployment, corruption, and hopelessness grow. Whether it is a ballot in Kampala or a barracks revolt in Ouagadougou, the message is the same. This old model is dying. Bobi, your path is the ballot box. Mine was the barracks, but both face the same enemy, systems that refuse to leave peacefully. When you challenge Museveni through elections, you are testing whether Uganda still has a democratic path left, or whether the Constitution has become just another wall to block change. I tell Africa's youth this: do not romanticize coups or elections. Romanticize justice, sovereignty, and leaders who fear the people's anger more than they fear losing privilege. If Bobi Wine wins fairly, that is a victory. If he loses fairly, that is a lesson. But if he is blocked by blackout tricks and repression, then Uganda will prove once again why so many young Africans believe the system only understands force. Look at Bobi Wine today. He is not voting in a suit. He is voting in a bulletproof vest. When a candidate has to dress for a battlefield just to cast a ballot, the black winter has arrived. We know the pattern. When the people's will threatens the palace, the masks come off and the iron fist appears. I want to send a direct message to the Ugandan security forces. Who are you shooting? Look at the faces in those lines. Those are your brothers. Those are the mothers who sell tomatoes in the market to pay for the very boots you are wearing. President Museveni, hear this clearly. You can arrest Bobi Wine, but you cannot handcuff an entire generation. You can shut down the internet, but you cannot switch off the political awakening that has already begun in Uganda's ghettos, campuses, and villages. You can deploy police and soldiers to every corner of Kampala, but you cannot occupy every heart that has already decided your time should end. For years, you have treated young Ugandans as a security problem instead of a political partner. When they sing with Bobi Wine, you hear threat. When they trend Free Bobi Wine or Uganda Decides, you hear instability. But what they are really saying is simple. They want a country where power changes hands without bullets, blackouts, or bribes. Every time you block his rallies, beat his supporters, or spread fear about his rise, you are feeding the very myth you fear most, that you are afraid of him. And when a ruler fears one man that much, the youth begin to wonder, maybe this is the man who can actually end what we have been suffering. You can jail bodies, you cannot jail that idea. President Museveni is willing to burn the house down just to keep the key to the front door. This is not leadership, it is economic sabotage. Every hour the internet is off, mobile money, the lifeblood of African trade, is paralyzed. The mother trying to pay for medicine, the student trying to pay for school, the merchant trying to secure a shipment, they are all victims of one man's ego. He claims to be the father of the nation, but what father starves his children to prove he is still the boss? Uganda's youth, you are powerful online, but now you must also be wise offline. Hashtags like Uganda decides, free Bobby Wine, Museveni must go can trend on X and TikTok, but a trending tag is useless if the leader behind it is left exposed when the cameras go dark. In Burkina Faso, I learned that when a leader stands up against a system, the people must become his shield, not just his audience. That means documenting everything, staying disciplined, refusing traps of violence that give the regime an excuse to crush you, and building networks that can function even when the internet is cut. You are not just followers, you are guardians of the possibility of change. Bobby Wine is a symbol, but symbols can be broken if they walk alone. Create community watch, legal aid teams, digital backup channels, diaspora networks ready to amplify any abuse in real time. Do not only ask, is he the next president? Ask, what are we doing to make sure he does not become the next target while we are busy refreshing our feeds? Across Africa, a new hero map is forming in the minds of young people. They see Julius Malema in South Africa. They see Bobi Wine in Uganda. They see Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso. Different paths, same anger at an old order that refuses to leave. When your election is covered as Uganda votes under internet blackout and police crackdown, it does not look like stability. It looks like fear of this new generation. Bobby, whether you like it or not, you are now part of a wider conversation about youth leadership in Africa. When you speak, people compare your courage to mine, your strategy to mine, your risks to mine. They ask, will Uganda get its Traore moment through the ballot box, or will it become another example of how elections are used to recycle the same faces? Museveni, you should understand this too. If Bobby Wine becomes president through a real vote, you will have shown Africa that peaceful transition is still possible. If he is beaten unfairly or broken, you will have shown Africa that the road of ballots is blocked, pushing more youth to believe only confrontation, not democracy, can change their fate. What happens when the screens go dark? The truth moves from the digital cloud to the concrete street. Today, in Kampala, the internet shutdown is total. The regime thinks it has won because the hashtags have stopped trending and the WhatsApp groups are silent. They believe that by cutting the fiber optic cables, they have cut the heartbeat of the revolution. They are wrong. They have only succeeded in forcing a generation of frustrated youth to look their neighbor in the eye instead of at a glowing screen. So, is Bobby Wine Uganda's next president or Museveni's next target? My honest answer is this. The decision is less in the hands of fate than in the hands of Uganda's power structure, and in the courage of its people. On paper, he has been cleared to run, his name is on the ballot, and the world's cameras are pointed at Kampala. In reality, he faces an internet blackout, a police crackdown, banned NGOs, and a state machine that has never practiced losing. If the regime believes it can survive a real Bobi Wine presidency, you may see him sworn in one day. If it believes his victory would open files, expose secrets, and inspire other countries to replace 40-year rulers, then every pressure will be used to keep him out or to break him. That is why I say the real question is not only who won the vote, but what will the system do if Bobi Wine gets too close to power? In that answer lies whether he becomes your next president, your next prisoner, or the next martyr whose face young Africans wear on t-shirts for decades. Where is the African Union while Uganda goes dark today, January 15th, 2026? Where are the so-called protectors of our continent? I will tell you. They are sitting in the Imperial Royale Hotel, led by former presidents, issuing arrival statements, while the people they are supposed to observe are being silenced. The AU has become a club of incumbents, a group of men who spend their time protecting each other's seats rather than the people's rights. Uganda, this is my final call to you in this moment of blackout, crackdown, and historic choice. Do not reduce this election to a simple scoreboard between Museveni and Bobi Wine. See it for what it is. A test of whether your country still believes in peaceful change, or whether it has accepted that anyone who rises too high must be targeted, not trusted. Bobby, protect your life, your movement, and your dignity. A dead hero cannot govern, and a broken hero cannot help his people. Move wisely, surround yourself with disciplined people, and remember that sometimes surviving to fight another election is more revolutionary than becoming a hashtag on a t-shirt. Museveni, if you truly care about Uganda's future, then allow history to remember you as the man who finally let the people's will decide, not as the leader who had to switch off the internet and unleash the police to stay in power one more term. To Uganda's youth, to Africa's youth, watch, learn, organize. Whether Bobi Wine becomes your next president or your next target will reveal not only the character of one man, but the soul of an entire system.